For a while now, I've been trying out the latest and greatest AI models to see if they can help me build out a simple app so that I can keep my job and prevent me from getting fired. However, so far, none of them have fully achieved that objective. But today, we're going to give Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro a shot to see how it does with this task. Speaking of that, let's review what I need it to do. Here's the task. It needs to create a note-taking application using Node.js and allow me to create, update, delete these notes. It needs to be production ready and, most importantly, secure. I want to express the seriousness of this to the AI so that it can build it out accordingly. So I'm going to send it in and making sure I'm using Gemini 2.5 Pro, and let's see what we get from it. Moving fast. This is great. I'm going to build out this note-taking application in minutes.
Speed. I am speed.
This is nice, letting it do its thing. Just drink some coffee, generating all the code for me. We got a package JSON now, creating a git ignore. That's good, good start. We can see on the right-hand side, some of this stuff that it's created already. It's already npm installed, creating an env file for environment variables. That's great. Now it's gonna create the server.js file, the main entry point for the application, including security measures like helmet, CSRF protection, rate limiting, and session management. Set the view engine. Okay, so we're going to be using a view engine in this one. That's pretty cool. It's going to actually create a front end. Not all of them create front ends with a one-shot prompt like this. While we're waiting for this to finish, if you're enjoying the video so far and you like this topic, this type of thing, like it, subscribe so you can see more. Now the question is, as this is happening, when you're using AI in agentic mode like this, are a lot of people reading everything it's doing? I mean, it's just zooming by my screen and I'd have to like go back, significantly scroll through a lot here. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments below. When you use AI in agentic mode, are you actually reviewing everything that's being mentioned in the chat room here? I see in bold letters and caps, HTTPS is crucial. Very true. Very true. If we don't know that by 2025, I think we're in trouble. It's done. You can now follow the instructions in the README to run the application locally. Let me know if you have any questions or want to enhance specific parts. Cool. Thumbs up, buddy. Accept all. Let's see what we got now. Let's review the code. Right off the bat, I can see that we're getting very similar results in terms of like how to structure the project with the files and folders and how to abstract things from each other. It's looking decent, right? With that, it's very much on par with normal conventions with that regard, like models within its own folder. We have the front end resources stored in this public folder, in this case the CSS files that we need there, routes in its own folder, views in its own folder. What's different here from past results that we've gotten is it's starting to use a view engine for the front end. So using things like EJS or Pug was one of the ones in the past that I recall, that type of thing from the Node.js JavaScript ecosystem. And that's kind of cool to see that it's using that. I don't know that I necessarily would go that path in a new project, but something different, some different behavior than what we've seen in the past results. And then we have the server.js file. And this is the meat and potatoes. Again, here right off the bat, looking at the code, very similar to what we've gotten in the past. We're still seeing this pattern of using .env in modern versions of Node.js. We don't need to use that to load up our environment variables. So models are still not picking up on that quite a bit. Another thing to call out with this code right off the bat is that it's using the csurf module for cross-site request forgery. One problem with that is that package is deprecated and no longer being maintained. And so we need to find an alternative to use for that. If you're curious about that, let me show you really quick. This one right here, CSRF-CSRF, is a decent alternative in place of the csurf module, or there is one that's CSRF-Snyk right here that you can see, CSRF-Snyk that you can check out. Beyond that, looking at the rest of the code, we got a content security policy with helmet there, rate limiting to make sure we don't get denial of service attacks, that type of thing. Database connections, we're using our view engine here with Express. We're setting up a session with session secret. We set up our routes and we have error handling, all pretty decent standard stuff. Important, keep this last. Catch all general error handling. So that's good to see too. This is decent so far. Let's check out the README to see what else it's telling us to do. Let's render that really quick. All right, a simple yet security-focused web application for creating, viewing, editing, and deleting notes built with Node.js Express and MongoDB. Security features, helmet, CSRF protection, input validation, output escaping, which is very good because we're using this view engine here for the front end, rate limiting, secure session management, environment variables, error handling, and mongoose schema validation. Okay. Prerequisites, Node version 14 or later recommended. So this is interesting. I think a lot of these models are basing their code that they generate on version 14-ish of Node, which is probably why we keep seeing that .env type of patterns being used, along with, what's the other thing I saw? In the package JSON, NodeMon, right? We don't need to use NodeMon anymore in modern versions of Node.js. All right, let's go set up here. Clone the repository, npm install, which I think it did already, but I'll do it just for good measure. We're going to make an env file. So we'll copy and create this and call it .env. Get rid of the example at the end there. npm install finish, so we can close that. We need to set up some of the values there, and then run is npm run. All right, so one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spin up a MongoDB instance so that we can actually test this thing out running and go from there. So give me just a moment for that. All right, I am back. I have a MongoDB server running and I'm ready to connect to it. I updated my environment variables. We're going to run npm at run dev now to see how it works. All right, looks like all is good. We're running on port 3000, so I'm going to switch over to the browser really quick. All right, so I switched over to the browser, opened up localhost 3000, and this is what we see right off the bat. A little fun message there from the AI. Why not create one if there's no notes found? So let's go about trying to create a note. Test 1, 2, 3. Create note, and there we go. We created it. Now, I don't know how secure this is considering there's no authentication happening. I'm not logging in and there's no authorization to make sure that I have permission to create or update or delete these notes like so. So it's kind of weird. We got a running application and that's pretty cool. That's great to see within minutes, right? All right, so the last thing in the README is talking about further security considerations to add here. It's talking about using HTTPS, right? Which when you're running locally, not as big of a deal to be worrying about right now. Dependency updates, regularly check for and apply updates to dependencies. That's good recommendation. Database security, logging. It doesn't have any. Why didn't it implement the logging already for me? Some of the stuff it could have implemented already, which is interesting. Principle of least privilege. Ensure the Node.js process runs with the minimum necessary permissions on the server. That's also a good recommendation, which in addition to that, the latest versions of Node.js have this mechanism where you can limit what the Node.js process can have access to and what permissions it's given. None of the models have been showing that so far or recommending it. All right, after looking at the code a little bit more, I think things look pretty good. We have a lot of the things in place that need to be there to make it secure. It's lacking some aspects of it like authentication and authorization, like I mentioned before. But for the most part, this is a good start and not slop in my opinion so far. All right, the next step is to use a security scanner to help us identify any vulnerabilities in our open source dependencies and the code that was actually implemented by this AI. So I'm going to use Snyk to do that. And when I run the scan for that one, we're going to see that there is one open source security vulnerability in our package JSON, which is this one here, this cross-site scripting vulnerability that's introduced via that csurf npm package that I was talking about earlier, which we can go away from using another alternative in the npm registry. Outside of our open source security vulnerabilities that were detected by Snyk, there are some code security vulnerabilities we have here that are medium severity. That's what the M stands for there. And it looks like it's talking about allocation of resources without limits or throttling. Now, this may be a false positive in this case because we did implement a rate limiter, and just double check on that. We can see we have the rate limiter flexible npm package being used, rate limiter memory, and that gets initialized here. And then the middleware gets set up like this middleware function, so that it will consume based on IP address that's the request is coming from. And then if it finds that it's been making too many requests, it'll send back the 429 status code. And then last but not least, to get the Express server to use that as middleware, we say app.use rate limit middleware. So we are seeing the AI generated code to implement rate limiting in the request here. And I think this might just not be detecting that, since there's abstraction layers going on here where we implement that code at the server, but at the route level, we don't have any rate limiting or further rate limiting going on for each individual route that's going on here. So maybe that would be an improvement, but not necessarily a huge security risk based on what was implemented at the server level. Now, I'm sure you can likely tell what my conclusion is going to be, but before we get to that, be sure to like the video down below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. All right, so let me know in the comments below what you think about Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro. What's been your experience with using it and the code that it generates for you? for me here, this is really good. I'm pretty impressed with how it's coming along so far and the improvements it's made from past models here. So it's nice to see things changing. However, one little downfall with this and all the other past models so far is that it's still following old patterns and practices when it comes to building out Node.js applications. So I'm hoping for the future models to implement these latest and greatest features when it comes to Node.js applications, but maybe we'll see that coming up next. But that does it for this video. Thank you for watching and happy safe coding, everyone.